If Nostr grows organically, then it will probably grow in similar boom and bust cycles where some new app shows up and it attracts like the next 1 million or 5 million people. If Google starts banning Nostr websites, then it will die inevitably, like especially right now when it's so small. It in theory allows for a huge boost in innovation because like you don't have to spend money on acquiring users and getting data. You launch your app and it has access to all the data and all the users. I would say that Lightning has to be integrated into Nostr if the ecosystem is to like develop any further.
Artur Brugeman is the CEO and founder of Nostr Band, a collection of search services designed for exploring the Nostr ecosystem. In our conversation, we got into the state of adoption and usage in Nostr today. We explored some of the challenges of getting new users to join Nostr and what some of the future catalysts might be that usher in the next wave of adoption. And we discussed why Nostr Band is focused on building a Nostr browser. If you enjoy this episode and if you learn something new, the best way you can show your support is by sending in sats over the Lightning Network. You can use any Podcasting 2.0 app to do that. There are dozens of them out there, but my favorite one to use is Fountain. Before we get into today's show, just a quick message from our sponsors. Today's show is sponsored by Voltage. Voltage is the premier provider of Bitcoin and Lightning node infrastructure. Today's show is also sponsored by Stackwork. And Stackwork is a Lightning-powered transcription tool that takes the best of AIs and humans to create better, faster, and less expensive transcripts. We'll have more from Voltage and Stackwork later in the show. Artur, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to cover Nostr and all the work you've been doing lately. You had a new release out in the last few days. I want to dive into that. But first, before we get into the company you're building, let's step back. I want to hear more about your background. I want to hear about how you first discovered Bitcoin, Lightning, and Nostr.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kevin. Let's start somewhere out there. So the Bitcoin, I think I heard of it like way before 2017, but around that time, I really like started interacting with it. We were building a crypto exchange aggregation service, something like this. Like my boss decided to build it, and I was like the developer behind it. So I didn't really pay too much attention to it for a while. But then, just due to the need to interact with various cryptocurrencies, I had to like study what that thing is, and eventually, pretty quickly, it became obvious that Bitcoin is the solution to many of the world's problems. A year or two, I learned about Lightning, and it got even more exciting because like Lightning seemed to solve the payments problem that Bitcoin has and the scalability problem. And for several years, I was like thinking about playing and trying to play with Lightning in various ways. I built probably one of the first like Lightning mobile apps that used that sent custom data to like do message exchange over Lightning. And I built some fun service that was called Inbox Fee, where you could connect your Gmail account to this app, and it would send a Lightning invoice to every stranger that like tries to email you.
That's so cool. What was this app called? Inbox Fee?
Yeah, inboxfee.com, I guess.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's even live. Inboxfee.com, the website itself. No, it's not live.
Okay.
I will kind of always had this, like for several years, this idea that somehow Lightning adoption is going to happen through some apps that are going to just integrate this thing behind the scenes. And right before the Nostr adoption started going up, I was building the Lightning web search thing. So you would have to pay like a Lightning invoice to see search results. Basically, it was called Real Search, and I released it and I posted it on Stacker News and got some like eyeballs there. But then, like in a week after the release, Jack Dorsey started tweeting about Nostr, and I decided to like build this search engine for Nostr too, because it was open and very trivial to do, and I built it in a couple of days. And so from there, like in a week, I bought it, Nostr.band domain name, and like turned this search engine into Nostr focused one. And since
Very
then,
cool.
I'm working on Nostr primarily.
What was the catalyst? You mentioned Jack Dorsey started tweeting about it, but what was it that actually convinced you that you should be spending your time working on Nostr?
Yeah, so I heard about Nostr from one of the podcasts with Ben Ark, maybe 6 months before that. And I took a look at it, and the spec made sense, and it was kind of pragmatic and seemed to have like some interesting set of trade-offs that could have worked. But I tried it, and there was no one out there, so I abandoned it. And then when Jack Dorsey started tweeting about it, the first thing I did was I was just trying to like get any users into something I'm building. That's why I like added the search over Nostr. And it took probably like a month until the January this year to like get convinced that this is something interesting that is here to stay, let's say, because like the momentum seemed to continue, and more developers were coming, and more interesting people were coming, and some investors were coming. So I guess it took probably a month of like watching this space, getting at least some roots. Yeah.
Now, can you give listeners a little background on Nostr Band specifically? Just talk about exactly what the project is and does, and how it's evolved over the last few months.
Yeah, so the Nostr Band is a Nostr search, and what it does, it connects to all the relays and downloads all the events and aggregates them and indexes them into a full text index. And that's basically it. Like if you need to find something out there anywhere on Nostr, you go to Nostr Band and you type the thing and it shows up. And like the reason it's not like trivial, not every client like can do it, because Nostr is centered around relays, and there are many of them, like 1,000 maybe today, and they all have like some subset of data. And if you want to do a search, you have to index all of them first before you can realistically like query all of them, or the data that all of them have. And so that's where it started. And then we're adding interesting features like statistics, where you can check how many followers someone has, or how many zaps they received, or how many retweets, reposts, or something some post had. Again, on Nostr, you can't really get a global picture because all the data is scattered around among relays. So you have to download all the data first and process it before you can calculate something that resembles like global numbers. And then there is an API, and then there is a trust rank, because you have to prioritize good stuff above spam and junk, because Nostr is an open network, so anyone can post. There were people who created 100,000 accounts in a half an hour, all following someone and just for fun. So you really have to have a generic and scalable way to sort of push back against this. And
right.
So it kind of grew as this set of services around aggregation and search. And we are still pursuing this direction, and we are building the new version of the site that's going to be open source, and that's going to be not rely on our custom middleware, and be able to just connect to any relay that supports NIP-05 search queries. So
very cool. Now, I think when a lot of people hear you're building a search product, immediately the thing that comes to mind is Google. Now, I know there's a lot of similarities and differences between Nostr Band, how ranking works, how trust works, and what Google has. Can you kind of do a rundown of the similarities and differences, given that you're building this on Nostr, and just talk about, what is Google doing the same or differently as you, given the different kind of places you're building these products?
Yeah, so the huge difference at this point is that Google is indexing the long form content, where and on average a web page can have 20 to 50 kilobytes of text. And so there's a lot of text there on a page, and so you do need various metrics like TF, IDF to prioritize, to decide whether this piece of text matches this query better than the other one. And with Nostr, with short messages, there is not much text in each message, so the textual index is just very basic, whether this word is in this node or not. That's the criteria. So you don't really have the relevance sort of metric. You can't get much of the over-relevance metric from the text itself. And so the only thing you can really rely on is some form of trust page rank, trust rank, something that's the similarity, essentially. Google has both signals, the relevance inside the text, and then the page rank that it gets from the links. And on Nostr, we really only have page rank or trust rank from links, where if a person is followed by a lot of other high quality accounts, then his trust rank is high, and then his posts, notes get high trust rank, and etc. So that's the very basic things that I can say here. And of course, I haven't come anywhere close the Google scale, even at the point when they started. When Google started, the web was approximately 100 million documents, as far as I know. And wow. You can multiply that by every document being 50 kilobytes of text versus 1 kilobyte on Nostr. So we are probably 2 or 3 orders of magnitude smaller on Nostr in terms of like the amount of textual data that you have to search through. So I would say like the search as a technical challenge is not very big on Nostr. It just works, and I was able to build it quite fast. But the bigger problem, like long term, will be the amount of spam and the like right now, when you're searching for something, you are okay mostly with a reverse chronological order of results. Like you are okay to just filter by date to find some node that you're looking for, probably. But if Nostr scales by like 1000x, then it probably won't work. And so how we are gonna organize the search product for people to like be able to find something is an interesting question. So the most obvious solution is to search through only some circle of people that are posting that are related to this user, like the first circle whom he follows, or like the second whom they follow, etc. But that's not trivial to implement. And so yeah, but those problems are like somewhere out there in the future, and will be interesting to work on them.
Now, when you think about Google as a business, it is one of the largest companies in the world. It has this like monopolistic position as the search engine, right? Everyone's using Google. Everyone's helping train Google. It continues to get better and better, faster than any of the other competitors. And it's managed to stay dominant for the better part of 20 years. How do you think the search ecosystem will unfold on Nostr? Is Nostr Band in a similar position as Google, where if you can aggregate enough data, if you can be the like best source of truth, everything kind of flows through Nostr Band? Or because this is an open system, are we going to see a different kind of like a different ecosystem at maturity where there may be multiple search providers?
I would say that this power law distribution is not like, there's nothing unique about Google here. Like any industry, especially the information technology industry, results in like one biggest player and then several smaller players, and then like very long tail of tiny players that nobody knows about. And so I don't think that Nostr is different in any way here. And I think businesses that are built on Nostr and like various verticals, including search, will end up somewhere at a similar place where there's like a dominant player, one or two, and a big long tail. The hope around Nostr is that due to the Nostr architecture, the world will be able to resist like monopolistic capture by the dominant player, where they just start building walls, like data moats, all this startup play where regulatory capture, God knows what other stuff they do to like prevent you from having option to switch from Google to something else. Like, for instance, you cannot you cannot set up a different search engine in your browser in Chrome. You can only choose from 5 of them. And which 5 are like added there is like at Google's discretion. They choose not to let you switch a search engine. On Nostr, hopefully, due to openness of everything and due to like how the ecosystem evolves today, hopefully it is going to evolve this in similar vein. You will have more choice to switch if your like search provider starts abusing its power. So that's kind of my view on this.
I see. Now you're saying hopefully when you speak about the future of Nostr, what is the opposite case? Can you make the case for a future where we do have that same regulatory capture or data moats, or what does that look like if Nostr doesn't evolve the way that you hope it will?
Well, I don't think that Nostr as it is can like devolve into something that was captured. I just think Nostr might not succeed. Like if the adoption stops and I don't know, if all app stores ban all Nostr apps, if Google starts banning Nostr websites, then it will die inevitably, like especially right now when it's so small. And so if it does succeed, then I think its architecture is promising. But if it doesn't, like if it dies, then that's it. We're going to stay with how it is with centralized services.
I see.
Yeah.
So if it does succeed, it's probably built in a robust enough way to counter any attempts at, gating access to content or building up, walled gardens. It probably has the structure to eliminate that risk. But the big risk being, since it's so small, it may just die before it gets that opportunity to succeed.
Yeah, like if we collectively, like the Nostr developers and the ecosystem as it is today, if we don't come up with apps and usage of this protocol that is so compelling to a lot of people that they like drive the adoption, if we don't do that, and if we all lose interest in Nostr and then everyone else around us does the same, then it will die. If we do find a great application for Nostr, maybe it's the Twitter clone thing. I'm not 100% sure of that, but maybe it is. Or maybe it's something else. So.
Now, you probably have access to the best data on Nostr of anyone building in this space. So I want to maybe step back here just to give folks an overview of the Nostr ecosystem. I'd love to hear, key themes or any kind of data, any metrics you're looking at and watching closely about Nostr, just to give people an idea of how this ecosystem is progressing.
Yeah, so we've got this subdomain stats.nostr.band where you can see live stats from most of the network, probably, like all the stuff that our crawlers are downloading. And I've built this dashboard specifically for myself to have a realistic view on how the Nostr ecosystem is evolving. Like this dashboard is not a PR thing to promote Nostr or anything like this. And that's why the first graph you see here is daily trusted pub keys writing events. What it means is how many people are actually using this thing, at least doing some action there, not just reading, but posting a comment or something. And that's the metric that I'm looking at. And it's pretty static in the last 2 months. And maybe it's even declining a little bit, just like if you look at the Google Trends and type Nostr there, you will see basically a very high correlation between like my graph and Google Trends graph, which tells me that my graph is probably okay and valid. And so what you see there is that Nostr attracts a lot of people daily, but they mostly churn away. And so the number of people that are actively using Nostr is pretty static. And so this is kind of the good thing here is that some people are sticking around and some people are actually staying here, and they keep building and they keep using Nostr. Yeah. The bad thing is that so many people are leaving, and we still, like 6 months in, haven't figured out like why. There was a lot of work done by all major clients around onboarding, around offering various ways to like customize your feed to maybe get more diverse or interesting content, but it doesn't seem to have paid off yet. So a lot of work ahead, I would say.
Yeah. When I look at those charts, I follow the stats.nostr.band very closely. And when I look at those charts, I kind of think about the earliest days of Bitcoin. And I don't even think there was, published and reputable data sources in the very first few years. But even into, 2013, 2014, 2015, and up to 2017, what I think you see in the Bitcoin price charts is you see really strong moves up and then like slow, drawn out, decreases in price for sometimes over a year. And I wonder if you think that those two are like, do you think that the Nostr protocol is going to have a similar adoption curve as Bitcoin, where you have like massive spikes, everyone gets interested all at once, friends are talking about it, and there's just enthusiasm that rushes in, and then this kind of like fade out, and over multiple cycles, at least what we've seen in Bitcoin is that each time the price tends to be higher, and that we do get more people, even though a lot of them leave after that kind of initial mania has died down. Many of them return, or many of them kind of like discover it later on. Is that a good way to think about how Nostr adoption might occur, or do you think it'll be adopted in a different fashion?
I'm not sure it's going to be following a similar path, although you could argue that most technologies, just like, I don't know, the internet itself, probably followed the similar like pattern of cycles where boom and bust cycles. So if Nostr grows organically, then it will probably grow in similar boom and bust cycles where some new app shows up and it attracts like the next 1 million or 5 million people, maybe, but then it sort of cools down. But then there is a chance that some application is built that just grows like some company comes here and builds an application that grows just like a startup. Social networking applications do grow sometimes. Then it might grow much faster without like bumps. So I'm not trying to like spend too much time thinking about this, because I think it's unknowable sort of, and what I have to like prepare for as someone who is trying to build a company is like I have to at least survive, and so I have to think and expect that it will take long and probably longer than I expect for Nostr to grow. And that's like what I'm preparing for.
Yeah. Now, as a builder, what can you do to kind of spur on more adoption? What are some of the things that you think other builders in the ecosystem, other users of Nostr, like what can be done today to kind of push for more adoption, get more people on board? What are we kind of missing when you see these charts kind of flatlining? I think now we're about 8 or 10,000 daily active, I think, trusted pub keys, right? That's the metric.
Yeah.
So we've got about 8 or 10,000 individuals, and maybe they're not exactly perfectly correlated to people, but I think that's roughly correct. How do we get that to 80,000 or 800,000?
Yeah, I would say that's the biggest problem, question that everyone on Nostr is trying to answer, and I don't think there is a way to think through to come up in your head with an answer. We collectively just have to build different things and try them, and that's what's happening right now. All those initiatives for supporting builders with grants or promotion of various ways, or hackathons, or all this stuff, I think it kind of works in the proper direction. We get more ideas thrown out there, and I think the core protocol is interesting and different enough so that something will stick eventually. And so I think we're in the right direction. It's just unknown, to me at least, how much time it's going to take.
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Just a quick message from our sponsor, Voltage. Voltage empowers engineers to integrate Bitcoin and Lightning Network payments into their business stack with an enterprise-grade experience. The team at Voltage is building the complete tool set so that you can do more than simply spin up nodes, but also understand and interpret your node's data. Their new product, Surge, gives engineers the capability to quickly solve problems and optimize operations. With node insights and visibility through time series data, you get dynamic and complex insights never available before. You can get complete control with insanely fast onboarding, advanced client-side encryption, and zero management infrastructure, making backups, networking, and upgrades simple. Get a free 7-day trial today at voltage.cloud. Now, I think in a lot of people's heads, there's still this notion that Nostr is decentralized Twitter. It is effectively a replacement for it, or that Nostr only does that one thing. I want you to kind of debunk this idea and share some of the apps or ideas that people are throwing around, all those new things that could garner that next wave of adoption. What are some of the cool ideas and products that you're seeing among builders in the space?
Yeah, so the Nostr spec and intro is heavily focused on social use case, and even narrower on the Twitter short notes use case, and that's why the first clients were made around these features, and that's why everyone knows about them. But the Nostr protocol itself allows any type of data to be transferred and to be stored on relays and distributed to clients. And so when people realized that, they started building very different things. And most of those things are still somewhat in the social category. Many of them are in productivity category. But then some of them are, especially lately, are more in AI, machine-to-machine communication things, or things like distributed order books for exchanges of something or marketplaces. Or I've just watched your conversation with Tony from Mutiny Wallet, where you're discussing the Nostr Wallet Connect idea. Like here, someone is using Nostr to connect to their Lightning wallet, and like no creator of Nostr ever thought about like this thing being used for connecting to your wallet, to your Lightning wallet. So the interesting use cases that are pretty well known are, well, let's say, highlighter, and this idea of like annotating things out there on the internet and then discussing them collectively. And then there are lists of various kinds, sort of analogous to Pinterest or something, where you can, or link lists like Delicious, where you can like save various links or pictures or texts, and then other people can look at your lists, can share them, etc. And what do we have here? Then there is like different kinds of social networks, like someone is building Reddit style Nostr clients where there are sort of closed communities, moderated communities. And then there are long form nodes where you can just publish longer form content, and there are clients that resemble like Medium or any other like long form text platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are clients that sort of try to present Nostr nodes in a more Instagram-like way. They just select the posts with pictures and show you the beautiful feeds of pictures. And then there is live streaming. There's zap.stream website, and I guess a couple of other clients support it too, where a live stream is announced on Nostr. You're joining the stream on Nostr. You're commenting on the stream on Nostr. And let's see what else. There's music app. You can post music on Nostr, and then some people are going to discover it, and they can play it, and they can share it, and they can add to their playlist. And let's see what else. There's Nostr Bounties website, which is, by the way, needs your attention out there, contributors, if anyone wants to improve it. So you can go there and post a bounty for improving some Nostr client or any other dev job for that matter. And what else? Stemster is a very interesting project where these guys, they've been working on it for, I guess, several months, and made their first releases like several weeks ago, where you can create music using Nostr, where your music track that you've created can be posted on Nostr and then taken by other creators and remixed and reposted on Nostr. And then each of those tracks contains some metadata of who like created it, which parts of it were taken from which track, etc. So you get kind of very interesting social graph, I guess, in the music tracks. And then there's Ostrich Work website, which allows you to post job offers on Nostr. Why not? Like LinkedIn is not much different from any other like social graph. There are badges where people invent their own badges and then award them to everyone. And there's a Nostr chat widget which you can put on your website and let your visitors like use it to communicate with you or to comment on your site.
Yeah. So there's a wide array. There's a ton of different things here. I mean, you mentioned a bunch. You mentioned productivity, machine-to-machine stuff, Nostr Wallet Connect, music, and remixing. I think a lot of people when they looked at Nostr through the Twitter lens, they went, "Oh, this is a place where I can't get banned or I can't get kicked off. There's always, as long as there's a relay that I can connect to, they can't kick me off. They can't get rid of me." Why are people flocking to all these other use cases? It seems like some of these may go beyond the censorship resistance, right? Like for a productivity app, for example, I don't know anyone's complaining about censorship there. So what are the other draws for people to build on Nostr and then for users to start using these products on Nostr beyond just this promise of censorship resistance?
Yeah, so beyond the censorship resistance idea, which I would say isn't not even that sort of attractive for the vast majority of population, they just don't care. The thing that Nostr does is it brings interoperability to the ecosystem, because you have servers, relays, which you can talk to using a well-defined simple protocol, and they promise to store your data, and that data is structured, and that structured data, there are specifications, NIPs, Nostr Improvement Proposals, where, like, if you figured out how to properly describe, let's say, a music track, then the spec is written and everyone knows how to represent music on Nostr now. And so if someone publishes a music track from some app, then all the other apps can see that music track too. And so this is not like walled gardens that existing centralized platforms create. It's an open field where if you build an app and this app is maybe marginally better than the other app, people might actually switch to your better user experience, because the data is very similar. In every app, they have access to all the data. And you also have access to all the users, to the social graph. Like if you follow someone in one app and you switch apps, then your client, your new app has access to the same social graph you're following. And so this kind of opens up very interesting possibilities that have never actually been available to people, where like the old internet, there's like data layer and representation layer, how data looks. It's all like there's no like data layer there's no common API on the internet. You just open a website and it shows you the job offer, let's say, and website A shows it differently than the website B. But on Nostr, there's like this data layer, a common layer where data formats are standardized. And so every app can have access to the same data. And it, in theory, allows for a huge boost in innovation, because like you don't have to spend money on acquiring users and getting data. You launch your app and it has access to all the data and all the users already. And that's very interesting to people. And they sort of, it takes a while to like appreciate this and to think this through and to actually try it and see that it works. And like, but in 6 months, a lot of people started getting, and a lot of apps have been created, and even like the vast majority of people who only talked about like social use case of Nostr, they are starting to pay attention to like all those different sides of Nostr that are rising. That's very exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. So like when I think about interoperability on Nostr and trying to kind of compare that to the web today, I think about one use case I think about is messaging, where like I have 100 different messaging apps or places where a message could end up on the web today, and I have to go manually to each, my email inbox, my Twitter inbox, my Facebook and Instagram, and all the places that I have the possibility of receiving a message, and none of them really talk to each other. And so I imagine there's some kind of use case there for someone to build this on Nostr, where every app that has the potential to send a notification or a message or some kind of information to me privately can now they can kind of all talk to each other and work together. But you're right, like wrapping your head around this interoperability thing is a really difficult thing. You have to take a while to appreciate that. Are there any other interesting kind of second order effects of this interoperability on Nostr? Anything that you kind of, if you look around the corner, that you go, now that we have interoperability, we could do X, Y, and Z? What are all those kind of new things that interoperability unlocks?
Yeah, well, I would say that the interoperability of Nostr plus the openness of the network and plus the identity with private public keys, where each message, each event is signed. These like three things have interesting consequences where like participants on the network can have stable identities, but you can't really know who is like a human and who is not. And so this stable identity can be productive. It can do good things or like some things for someone. It can interact with people. It can transact with people, especially given the Bitcoin Lightning Network. But you don't really know whether it's a person or a software and or a bot or AI, whatever you call it. And no one can really tell. And it kind of changes how the internet works and how like services are provided on the internet and how competition works on the internet. So like all those centralized platforms, they do KYC in one way or another in order to like maintain the high quality of the service, of the services offered on the platform. If you are like participating on a marketplace, you at some point are gonna have to like KYC to prove like at least that you're at least a human. If they request like a phone number verification because they assume that you're gonna have to like go and buy a SIM card, so you probably are a real human. But on Nostr, the network allows like infinite amount of AIs, bots to participate. And so that's probably a centralized platform's nightmare on the one hand. But then on the other hand, it will push us to figure out ways to like build a different solution for trust on the internet. Because right now, the way trust works is that you trust the middleman almost all the time while using the internet. like you're trusting Google that the websites it's showing you are like high quality and nothing is missing, nothing is like there's no bias or anything like this. And like almost any service that you're using, the default assumption is that like this is a reputable website, so it probably offers me a reputable peers to transact with. And if we want to like use Bitcoin in a decentralized way to pay for things on the internet, and if we want to be able to like find signal among the sea of noise that an open network like Nostr will become, then we'll have to figure things out. Some things like web of trust, we'll have to like learn how to use it, how to make it work, so that essentially like you would have some trust graph starting from you as a source, and you would be able to like evaluate whether someone you are going to transact with has any connection with you, whether you essentially have some people that know both of you, so that you have some proxy through whom you can trust that person. And so this web of trust thing, it's going to like, if it works, transform the way like commerce and transactions happen on the internet. Hopefully, the dependence on those centralized platforms that suck all the margins out of all the business out there in the world, hopefully their dominance will be become smaller, let's say, and more money will stay like in local pockets.
Yeah. So I want to make sure I have this correct. So the centralized platforms are using their own, they're saying, trust us, trust me, I'm Google, trust me, I'm Facebook. We will show you content that is high quality. It's probably from a human, because we're going to use some like traditional KYC to make sure that you are a human. And on Nostr, we're saying this is going to be messy for a little while. There could be bots and AIs and humans all interacting. We don't quite know how to rank content in this new format. But instead of hiding from that and, you know, enforcing this through traditional KYC procedures, we're going to lean into it and try and develop new mechanisms that can accommodate new kinds of participants on the internet. Is that the right idea?
Yeah, I think you've laid it out very nice. And I would say that the mess is going to come anyway, because AI is coming and open source small models released to the public are here. And so everyone is going to build a bot that is very hard to distinguish from a human. And then they're going to like all go to Twitter and post there. And like Twitter has already got huge problems with bots. And now imagine all those bots talk like humans, because they have access to the great models. And so this mess is coming, and the world is either like, well, at least that's how it is in my head. The world is either gonna have to like say that the only ones who are allowed to use AI are like those big corporations that are doing all the safety checks and applying AI properly, or we allow this innovation, or maybe we cannot stop this innovation from happening at the local level. But then this mess will come. We'll have to figure it out. And on Nostr, it seems like it is at least possible to do that, because this stable identities plus the structured data format allows you to like analyze the history of some pub key. Have they been a good citizen, whether they are a human or not? Like, did they provide good services? Did they deceive their customers? Did they spam? Were they reported often or not, etc.? And then we will probably be able to like live with AI and live with this army of things that we don't really know whether it's human or not.
Yeah. Well, that gives me a lot of confidence hearing you say that, you know, I also agree that, you know, there's no stopping this AI train. Yeah. I don't see a way to kind of roll back the clock and go back to an internet where we expect everyone to be a human. And, you know, leaning into that and finding out what tools can we now use, given that AI is not stopping, AI is accelerating. And so I hope that we can come up with some interesting new mechanisms for that. One of which I wonder if Lightning payments play a role in ranking content on Nostr. I know we've seen limited usage of that, like mostly in the context of zapping people's posts on Nostr, where it's more or less like a donation or a tip at some point, like a zap in that context where people are kind of showing their appreciation with money using Lightning. Do you think that Lightning will become more embedded in the Nostr ecosystem as like a tool for ranking? If a post gets a certain number of sats, rank it higher than the one that didn't. Are there other interesting use cases for money as a ranking tool in Nostr?
Okay, so I would say that Lightning has to be integrated into Nostr if the ecosystem is to like develop any further, because right now there's no way to compensate relays for all the resources that they spend on storing and serving clients and storing events. There's no like protocol level way to compensate them, and without it, I don't see how this network can like scale, because right now there's almost no spam because no one cares. And I would say that like a single bad actor, like a kid at home, can take down most of the relays today.
Really?
The access to the proxy like servers is very cheap. There are like, you can access like 1 million IP addresses for several bucks essentially, and it's very hard to stop this thing unless you are like charging everyone who tries to talk to you, because like normally all servers require authentication. That's like sort of a KYC, like, are you a good citizen here? And if you're not, I'm going to ban your identity. But on Nostr, at the protocol level, there's no, at least it's not mandatory to authenticate your clients. And so you have to like serve everyone. But you can't really serve everyone if they start spamming you. You have to get compensated for that, for all the access. So that's like where I think Lightning has to be integrated at the protocol level, and that's a very important thing. But the ranking, I think it's much trickier. So the idea of using zaps or Lightning or any other like real value for ranking is that, well, this value is like, it's a cost. You can add if this post was costly to create, then it might, or if people spend their like money by zapping this post, then it's probably a good one. That's like a more or less good idea in terms of ranking, but the problem is that it can be gamed, and it's pretty easy to fake zaps. And even if it wasn't easy to fake zaps, you can always do wash zaps, like zap yourself from like anonymous account. And
right.
So the real like costly thing you can do is you can burn Bitcoin in one way or another. Like if there was a provable burn, then this like that's a real cost, like undeniable. You couldn't wash it. But that's not anywhere on Nostr at this point. I don't think anyone is trying to like integrate this. And then there is this idea of proof of work, where you would have to like run a lot of CPU cycles to prepare a node ID or pubkey such that it has like a lot of zeros at the front end, which means like it was costly to create.
Right.
I don't think this idea would work better than like the Lightning payments. Well, first of all, it doesn't work for reads. You can't like use it to protect from rogue readers that are going to spam your relay. You can only protect from writes from like the stream of events that are requested to be saved on your relay. And then in this case, this proof of work is a pure waste. Like in Bitcoin, the hashing that is spent to produce a new Bitcoin is then reused, because this same Bitcoin is going to be like transacted over and over and over. And so this waste of energy is not really a waste. It will amortize like to a tiny amount. But here, like, you will essentially boil the oceans to just prove that you are not a bot.
Right.
Where instead you could just send someone Lightning payment to the relay owner and compensate them for their work. So I don't think like the Zaps Lightning will be the core of a new ranking algorithm. I think they are going to be a part of it, but only like probably as like a secondary metric after the trust ranking metrics, where like I could say that if I zap, you could say that if I zap this guy 1 million sats and this guy 100,000 sats, then I probably trust the first guy more. So you can like make such inferences, but they're quite limited. And so
I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Just a quick message from our sponsor, Stackwork. Stackwork is a Lightning-powered platform for generating high-quality transcripts of all your audio or video content. They combine AI engines and hundreds of human workers all over the world who are paid over the Lightning Network to assemble these transcripts. And that's what lets Stackwork create better, faster, and less expensive transcripts. To see the results for yourself, you can check out my personal website where I host transcripts for all my podcast episodes. If you want to learn more about Stackwork, visit stackwork.com. That is STAK work.com. I want to get into the latest project that you released. You announced this on Nostr a few days ago. It's called Spring, and it's a Nostr browser. I want to understand a little bit more about what role this browser plays in the Nostr ecosystem and why this is important.
Yeah, so like we talked about how Nostr allows for interoperability, which is great. But then today there is no like infrastructure for running all those apps that might like come up and have already been created. Like there's more than 80 apps published on nostrapp.link, which is a Nostr client that allows you to publish your apps on Nostr. And so this interoperability means that you can, let's say, view the same profile in different apps, or you can view the same event in different apps, or you can open a link to a Nostr event. Yeah, like you might wish to open it in many different apps. And today you do that manually. You like copy a Nostr IDE, then you go and open your favorite client, and then you like paste the ID somewhere in the URL. You have to like figure things out manually. And so that was like the precursor to this idea of maybe there should be a browser supporting all this, like a browser that understands that there exist Nostr apps, and this string is a Nostr ID, and if you click on it, then you wanted to open some Nostr app, and then it would also, of course, like store your keys and across the apps, so you wouldn't have to like paste your keys into every app. So this was like the initial thinking that Nostr browser makes sense. And then while we started like playing with this idea, even the like earliest prototypes were quite like useful. Like they really changed the way I was using those apps, and I really started like using all those smaller apps because of the convenience of like switching between them. And so we sort of started paying much more attention to this project, and then we got some designs from Nostr community, and so the project started looking good, and that's where we are now. Like we made the first release last week, and working on the getting to Android Play Store, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah. And so because there is this interoperability between all these different apps, because you can kind of store your identity in the browser, and because there's so many different things that you could do on Nostr, is this browser going to be a competitor or replacement for something like Chrome or any kind of a traditional browser that someone might use on the web? Is this supposed to be like flexible enough to accommodate the entire spectrum of Nostr apps and eventually be the only tool that someone uses to kind of browse the internet?
Yeah, like my personal goal is to replace Chrome, at least like on my Android phone for now, but then eventually the Chrome on desktop and like everywhere. You can look at it this way. Like right now, Nostr is pretty small. There's like a social network is probably like two things. It's like the content, and it's a set of like interactions that you can have with that content, like what you can do with it. If you on traditional social networks, the number of interactions you can do is limited by the platform, but like they have huge scale. On Nostr, the number of interactions you can have is like unlimited, essentially. Like it's just limited by the creativity of people here. But there is not enough content because the network is small now. But if you connect the existing web with all those things you can like build by adding Nostr there, you might actually like new products and use cases might emerge which you wouldn't even think about like right now. So let's say the highlighter idea where you would highlight something on the web page, anything, and you would publish it on Nostr so that other people would discover this article and you could discuss it. That's cool. You can now, inside the Nostr browser, do this on any content out there on the web, like on Wikipedia or anywhere. Then there is like data vending machines spec that Pablo has created, which allows you to interact with a free market of AIs or some other services. Well, now, if you are browsing the web through the Nostr browser, which has integrated access to those data vending machines, then there's like 100 different things you can do with the content on the internet. You can translate anything. You can transcribe like podcasts. You can generate images, summaries of articles, etc. And this might make sort of Nostr a tool first. And so people would install, let's say, Nostr browser as a tool to enhance their web browsing experience through all those interesting services that can be provided through this integration with Nostr. But then the content that these people produce, whether it like job offers for the data vending machines or comments and highlights and likes and reviews and God knows what else, they will grow the Nostr content network itself. And so that might be like the interesting way to grow Nostr.
See, you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation the possibility of Google taking action to kind of like basically kill Nostr or effectively, make it so that Nostr cannot succeed. Is there a risk that Google does the same for this Nostr browser project? And how do you mitigate that? How do you kind of make sure that whatever you're building is anti-fragile, that it is not, a one-click shut off for Google if it gets too big? How do you make sure that it lives on?
Well, right now, I don't think anyone really has any leverage against like Google and Apple. Like most of the normal people are accessing any content or any apps or any websites through software that is built by these corporations. And so if they want to shut something down, they probably will. But there are several initiatives that are like building tools and infrastructure to distribute content and distribute apps outside of those walled gardens. And so we definitely have to like be there. And we will build the Nostr browser for like all the platforms, and both for iOS and Android, and we'll build it for desktop, and we'll publish it on F-Droid and anywhere we can. But like, I don't think this is really what we should be worried about at this point. Like, it's a good thing if Google decides eventually to shut us down, because it means we are so big that it matters to them. And so I don't really spend much time thinking about this. I would spend much more time on like building something that some users value and use daily. And that's the way forward, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so to finish this conversation off, why don't I give you the floor here and give you an opportunity to kind of, for all the people who have listened in, many of these listeners on my show are Nostr users, or they at least have tried Nostr at some point. what is your message to these listeners? What is your, if you're trying to spur them on to try Nostr and start using it and try the Nostr browser, what would you like to say to kind of like, nudge people to take action here?
Yeah, I think the major criticism from sort of Bitcoiner people who have tried Nostr and didn't like it and abandoned it, it goes somewhere on the technical side of things where it's like, well, it's probably not going to scale as good as Twitter. The clients are not as smooth as Twitter. No one is going to switch to this thing, so it makes no sense to like spend time on it and something like this. I would say they should think about Nostr not as like a Twitter clone or replacement, but as a new open network for data communication and data exchange. And there are a lot of interesting things that can be built on such a thing, especially if you connect it with Lightning. And especially if you have this like a community of people who are like freedom oriented and would like good things for the world. You can just sort of dial down your skepticism about Twitter, about replacing Twitter, and instead just try some other apps on Nostr and maybe read the specs. There are like around 100, I guess, almost, of different specs of what can be what data can be represented on Nostr, and maybe something out there catches your interest, and you will start participating, even if you don't like post every day like you would on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. I like that message. All right, let's finish off with the lightning round. I do it at the end of every show. Got some rapid fire questions for you. You ready?
Okay.
First question. If you could only hold one asset for the next decade and it could not be Bitcoin, what asset would it be?
Yeah, that's hard to say. I would have to say it's US dollars, unfortunately. I don't see any other option for me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a reason the stablecoin market exists, right? It's in high demand.
Yeah.
Okay. Has there been any book that has changed your view of the world that you want to share with folks today?
I don't think it was a book, although there is a book. Most lately, the author that changed some ways that I look at the world is Jordan Peterson. Mm-hmm. And I don't read him as much lately, like the last year, but a couple of years ago, he brought some good ideas to like my mind, and they changed the way I look at the world.
Nice. Finally, if you could give a shout out to a builder in either the Bitcoin or the Lightning or the Nostr ecosystem for doing great work, who'd you like to give a shout out to?
Well, I would say that we all have to give praise to Pablo on Nostr, because he's doing like a job of a research lab alone and showing everyone around him what's possible. And I think he should be supported, and maybe anyone else who like has crazy ideas about Nostr, just go out and try them. Like there is nothing stopping you. It's open network.
Yeah. Give it a shot. I like it. Where can folks go to learn more about you and Nostr Band?
Well, I personally don't have much of a presence anywhere, I guess, except for Nostr. And you can go to Nostr.band to try the Nostr search that we have, and you can go to spring.site to try and download the Nostr browser that we have released recently.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. I learned a ton and hope we can do it again soon.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, nice chat.
I'm recording this outro at the same time that I'm publishing my episode with Alex Leishman, the previous episode. And so I can't see exactly how many sats you guys sent in that time span between publishing Alex's episode and Artur's episode. But I can't wait to see what you guys send in next week, and I'll share it on next episode. See you soon.